The social media post J.K. Rowling penned to mark the occasion of her 23rd wedding anniversary was short, understated, and heartfelt. It consisted of a photograph of the author, smiling in the embrace of her husband, Neil Murray, underneath the brief caption, "Married 23 years today," alongside a single heart emoji. The photograph, shared with her 14.3 million followers on X on Boxing Day, is a happy, sunlit snapshot. Informal, relaxed. There is one feature about the image that is, however, noteworthy. While the Harry Potter creator's sunglasses are perched on top of her head, her husband's are down, covering his eyes, leaving his broad smile the only evidence of his expression. While she is instantly recognizable as one of the most famous and possibly richest women in the world, he is the little-known but no less crucial behind-the-scenes partner. Rowling gave a tiny glimpse of just how valuable that support has been in an exchange following that anniversary post. There'd been the usual slew of comments, not all of them kind. The 59-year-old mother of three has been well accustomed to brickbats and insults hurled her way, not least because of her staunch views on gender identity. "I hope he leaves you for a trans woman," came one, to which she dryly commented, "I just read this to Neil, and he said something that made me laugh. So hard, I nearly coughed up a kidney." Clearly, a rollicking sense of humor is something this couple share, for when one follower urged her to reveal what her husband had said, Rowling quipped, "I'm not about to get my husband cancelled. One in the family's enough." So, what do we know of a man behind the scribe who by her own admission has received enough death threats to paper her house and had her private address published online? Neil Murray was 29, working as a senior house officer in anesthetics at St. John's Hospital Livingston, West Lothian, when he met the already phenomenally successful Rowling in 2000. Her first book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, had been published 3 years earlier, propelling her to stardom. A former head boy at his school in the Scottish town of Hintley, Aberdeenshire, Neil had chosen not to follow his father and grandfather by becoming a vet, but rather won a place at Glasgow University to study medicine, graduating in 1994. It was Rowling's sister Dee, 2 years her junior, who brought the two together when Rowling fled her tumultuous first marriage in 1994. She found sanctuary with her sister, who was recently married and living in Edinburgh with her husband Roger Moore, who owned a cafe in which Rowling would sometimes write. Her arrival in Scotland from Portugal, a newly single mother to baby daughter Jessica, has been well documented. She just walked away from a turbulent first, short and catastrophic, her words, marriage to budding journalist Jorge Arentz, and arrived at her sister's door, hands full with a burgeoning manuscript and a daughter in a pram. Less well documented is the role Dee would have in making the introduction that would lead to romance. Quite how their paths interconnected is unknown, but Dee worked as a nurse before retraining as a solicitor in 2002. Neil, was just out of a marriage himself, Rowling said in a 2012 interview with the New Yorker magazine. "I just thought that would be complicated. I wasn't up for that." Murray, 6 years Rowling's junior, had been married to fellow Dr. Fiona Duncan. The two met at university and married in 1996, but by early 1999 they drifted apart with their divorce finalized in July 2001, by which time both were in new relationships. The spark between Murray and Rowling ignited after they found themselves sitting next to each other at a charity event in Edinburgh. Whether or not this was before or after the publication of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the fourth book in the series, and the one that received world record advance orders of 5.3 million copies in July 2000 is unknown. Rowling was a household name and had spawned Potter fans of all ages around the world. But she was delighted to discover that Murray was not one of them. As she would later say, "The night we met, he told me he had read the first 10 pages of Philosopher's Stone on a late-night shift at the hospital, and he thought it was quite good. And I thought that was fantastic. He hadn't read the books. He didn't really have a very clear idea of who I was. It meant that we could get to know each other in quite a normal way." Rowling has also been clear that at the time their paths crossed, she hadn't expected to meet anyone, least of all someone who, with his foppish fringe and glasses, was a dead ringer, as it was noted when the relationship became public in December 2000. For Harry Potter, as she told the Times in 2003, "I thought the baggage was too much. It's not that I didn't meet anyone, it's that I didn't meet anyone I wanted to have a relationship with, much less marry. Of course, you do meet people, but it tends to be those who are very keen to approach you and maybe not those you would really want to meet. Plus, her first marriage had left her vulnerable, and she needed time to heal. Speaking to U.S. Chat Show, Doyen Oprah Winfrey in 2010, Rowling said, "I can't say I walked straight out of that marriage and that experience saying, I feel enlightened in any way. I felt quite shell-shocked. I had a very, very tiny baby, and then I went straight into poverty and depression, but I did a lot of thinking after that marriage ended. Primarily about me, why things had been as they had been, and it was 7 years before I met the right man. But I think it needed to be 7 years. I was really ready. Certainly, the attraction with Neil Murray was swift and strong. In 2001, the couple traveled to Mauritius together, where it was rumored they might even marry. Tall, calm, discreet, Murray was there at the side of his multimillionaire girlfriend, then 36, at the world premiere of the film Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in November 2001, the same month it emerged that she had bought a 19th century mansion in Perthshire. The following month, Rowling's agent released a statement announcing the pair had married on Boxing Day in a private ceremony in their picturesque new hideaway, a small ceremony attended only by immediate family. The couple would go on to have 2 children, David in 2003 and Mackenzie in 2005, younger siblings to Rowling's daughter Jessica, now 31. But in testament to the protective instincts of their parents, all 3 have remained firmly out of the spotlight as, to a degree, has their father. By the time of their marriage, Murray had decided to retrain as a GP, and Rowling was immersed in the final stages of her 5th book, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Rowling memorably spoke to Jeremy Paxman in her only interview before the Order of the Phoenix's release about the death of a key character. "I walked into the kitchen crying, and Neil said to me, 'What on earth is wrong?' And I said, 'Well, I've just killed the person. Neil doesn't know who the person is.' And he said, 'Well, don't do it then. I thought he's a doctor, And I said, 'Well, it just doesn't work like that. You are writing children's books. You need to be a ruthless killer.' Murray's professional interests, of course, are more concerned with the preservation and protection of life. In 2011, he was working as a GP in Ormiston on the outskirts of Edinburgh, where practice documents noted his interests: pain management, including acupuncture, dermatology, skin problems, homeopathy, and drug misuse management. At Christmas that year, his wife joined him at the turning on of the village Christmas lights. But she didn't flick the switch. That task fell to her husband. The medical register indicates that Murray, who is a director of several companies, equestrian, forestry, investments, and property, voluntarily relinquished his medical license, as doctors often do during a career break. For a short time in 2019, but regained it in March 2020, only giving it up again in March last year. Was his return a response to the COVID pandemic? Rowling spoke of the pride and anxiety that came with having 3 close family members who were key workers. During lockdown, she also shared a revealing insight into the marital bond on Ken Bruce's tracks of My Years on his Radio 2 show in 2020. She cited Bill Withers' Ain't No Sunshine as a love song that had touched her life. The reason? Her husband. It's such a beautiful, simple sentiment, but I have an additional reason for choosing it, which is that it took lockdown for my husband to say to me, "This always makes me think of you when you're down in London," and that was a very moving marital moment. So now it has an extra layer of meaning for me. Her husband's medical knowledge has come in handy when writing her Cormoran Strike detective series under the pen name Robert Galbraith, which has been adapted for the BBC. "My process is normally that I will research what I need for the plot," she said last year. "But then I'll check. Is this correct? Have I got the wrong end of the stick on this drug, on what this injury would do, or what artery this knife would sever?" I'm proud to say he's mostly said this is okay. For Murray, the closest he has come to talking publicly about his life with her was in 2007. That year, he visited Moldova to see the work of Lumos, the charity she founded to help some of the world's most disadvantaged children. His blog about his visit began, "I am married to J.K. Rowling, Joe." The same year, he gave a single short but illuminating insight while being filmed by a crew following Rowling for a year in the Life documentary. Husband and wife were traveling on a private jet when he was asked, "What is JK Rowling like to live with?" He replies, "Joe detaches. When she's very stressed, she'll detach herself and only trust one person, and that's herself. So everyone else gets blocked out and she becomes more and more stressed and less able to accept any help." In 2022, Rowling did not join a vigil outside the Scottish Parliament at Holyrood as politicians debated changes to proposed gender reform laws. She couldn't make it for family reasons, but Murray went in her place. "As I couldn't be there, Neil volunteered to take my place. I didn't even ask him," she wrote. Following her romantic gesture, marking their 23rd anniversary, she was characteristically light-hearted about him. "He married up," wrote one in the comments. "Trust me, as everyone who's met him knows, I'm the lucky one," Rowling shot back. "Do you think you'll keep him?" asked another. "I've lost the receipt, so I'll have to," she parried. But perhaps most endearing was her response to the follower asking for the secret to such happy